Continuing the series of lectures about national stereotypes, we moved to, I and my students, we moved to Swedes, nation that lives in Sweden. So there was many interesting stereotypes mentioned, and as usual we put it on the great table with 3 columns with the positive, negative characteristics, and in the middle the controversial ones that are either positive nor negative, or controversial just in the narrow sense of this word. The first difference from previous lectures was that my students didn't mention any characteristics which would be typical for conquering nations, like aggressive or loud or expansionist or something like this. Because we are talking, when we are talking about Sweden, we are talking about a nation that is not as far smaller in scale and in the number of inhabitants than, for instance, Great Britain and United States and Germany, France, Russia, that were mentioned and talked about before. So there was a very huge difference here at the beginning already. Sweden is very puzzling because it's a nation that invents many things in its own special way, and it's to a great extent, which is extraordinary for such a small nation. It invents to a very big extent its own way of being, of conducting politics, of managing its own culture, and so on. Sweden is a big culture, although it's a small nation. It's very simple to point out what's the Swedish attitude to life. Maybe it's easy to mention some, but it's not so easy to really settle down to really conclude what those characteristics are. But it's very easy to say something about the Swedes because we consume something Swedish like every week. There are this Swedish furniture, Swedish this, Swedish that. Swedish are sometimes called as lefty loonies and sometimes as very good individuals. They have very democratic furniture, very similar, and so on. They also had a very interesting attitude into politics. They had to accept harsh reality from time to time, like in World War II. Then when they have accumulated the huge army, and they were the nation, they are today the nation of 9 million inhabitants, or maybe 10. And in those days, during World War II, it was like 7 million, and they have accumulated an army with 1 million armed men, which is really something. And when they know how to accept harsh reality, they had to make some concessions both towards the Third Reich and to Great Britain. They were solicited and pushed by both of those powers and made some concessions. Those concessions are often ridiculed, for instance, by different nations, by America, which is so powerful that never had to make any concessions, or by the Swiss, who are ridiculing the Swedes, although the Swedes are not protected by a range of mountains and so on. So easily to say for the Swiss. I really despise the Swiss sometimes, exploiting the people going from escaping the Nazis, exploiting many different people and so on, and have this banking and all this. I don't like the Swedes, but I like the Swedes, although they are also sometimes rightfully accused of being not accepting reality, of being even mythological scale lefties and so on. So there is many contradictions in Swedish national character, if there is something like that. So, but back to, let us go further to the stereotypes that my students mentioned. Okay, so first it was that they like rotten fishes. I don't know. I know that Swedish cuisine is very special. They have smooth or something like this, which they chew.